Jason66 King and in general. Okay, I just made a long video about this, but it's and then in the comments I'm getting about the fact that saying everything is relative is not the sentence everything is relative. It's not an absolute. Okay, and I made a video, and then in the comments it's like making all these same old classical points. Okay, yes, that's what they teach in a philosophy class, because they're not skeptics. Okay, they're not skeptics. But the refutation of this is, first of all, let's just get this clear. It is impossible to make an absolute statement. In English, anyway, you cannot make an absolute statement, not about reality. Okay, did they taught you that in your classical philosophy too, right? Analytic versus synthetic statements. Okay, I don't make the distinction quite that way. But they're onto something there you might want to think about, okay? Because, to say everything is relative, if that's an absolute, then the terms have to be absolute. Is and relative, and the meaning of relative is definitely changing for relativists. We're learning more and more about what it really means. It's like to say these scissors, I have some scissors here, happen to be here, these exist. Okay, well, first of all, that's pretty approximate. You're ignoring a lot of details about the scissors. But it's only like absolutely certain depending on how you're defining exist. Now, if exist is the name of a phenomena, right? I'm really saying these scissors exist is really saying, hey, there's a phenomena creating this material image of scissors. Okay. But if I'm saying it exists, meaning, oh, it's made of substance, it's this, there's some definition, some principal definition of exist, then no. Because we don't really know what exist means. We argue over existence and what it really means, other than just a name for the phenomena. So it's not absolute because we don't even have a final definition. We're casting a net. And the crucial difference is that you can name a phenomena. So like the word absolute is actually pretty well defined. Why? Because it's the name of a pattern. It's the pattern where a truth that would apply to any frame of reference. It could be plugged in to any frame of reference. And that pattern does not exist in nature. That's what we're saying when there is no absolutes. Okay. We're saying that tautology names something that doesn't have a material component. Okay. Now it's not, in this whole self-referential thing, yeah, you're onto something there too, Jason, and that's really important. But it's not Russell's paradox. There's no rule against having sets that refer to themselves. Yes, this is something to do with Russell's paradox, with the cause of Russell's paradox, but it's not that every self-reference is incomprehensible. And the Russell example of, the set of all things which are not France, that set contains itself because that set is not France. Yeah, there are things like that is allowed. That's why Russell's paradox is so difficult, because in principle, yeah, there are going to be logical sets that are going to contain themselves. All right? And you can't just say that that's illegal, because what are you going to say, that you can't have a set of things? No, that aren't France? No, you've got to. Well, I think the solution comes when you apply at the very latest to the material world. What has a material component? The set, that's an immaterial. When you say that a set of things that are not, what is it in reference to? Is it to a domain that has a material existence, like the universal domain of everything? So, this is not a gotcha. It doesn't matter how many philosophers continue to say this. They could say this forever. The logic is quite clear. To a relativist, language is relative. And I could say everything is relative for vertebrates, or it's for any creature with an embodied mind. All men and mammals and birds and anything that's a vertebrate has a mind close enough to us that we could call this, this embodied mind. You draw from that and you say for everything that's like that, stuff is relative. And you look at physics and you go, okay, for any particle, stuff is relative. You can't just say for everything, because again, how could that be an absolute? We don't know what everything is. We can't define it. You think you can just give it a name. You can just give this name, this everything, including all the things I know nothing about, or can know nothing about, or never will know anything about, other universes, just everything. And that's absolute because you've named stuff you can't describe. No, there's a material requirement there to be able to actually define your domain. Okay, you have to define everything in what domain? The domain of everything. But you can't define that domain, so you don't get to use it in relativism. And so every single sentence in any language is non-absolute because of the variability of the definitions and everything. But I'm going to have to say, after every sentence, oh, and by the way, this sentence, just like every other sentence, doesn't adhere to the criteria versions of the definitions. It's like knowledge. Objectivists will admit there's nothing that goes in this true knowledge, maybe a priori things, and they still don't want to allow changing the definition, so that something like relative certainty makes sense, and that's what the real debate is about, is will we change the definitions of these terms. Since the objectivist definitions are useless, they don't apply to the real world, why would we keep those definitions? How about we change the definitions to talk about things that actually occur in the real world?